Hello everyone and welcome. Thank you for joining us. Today, we are giving an overview of the different features in Unity 2020.2. My name is Amel Negra and I'm a creator advocate for the EMEA region at Unity. In 2020.2, performance, stability, and workflow improvements remain the priorities. In this session, we will go through 4 feature areas: programmer tools and performance, editor and team workflows, artist tools and graphics, platforms, and services. Let's get started with the programmer tools and performance improvements. We now implement support for Riesling analyzers in the compilation pipeline. With them, you can now run C# code analyzers asynchronously in the background inside the Unity editor without interrupting the user iteration workflow and run them synchronously from the command line. Consider using Riesling analyzers and rule set files in Unity projects to inspect your code for style, quality, and other issues. You can use existing analyzer libraries to inspect your code, as well as write your own analyzers to promote the best practices or conventions within your organization. This is a compilation time optimization. It uses Roslyn referenced assemblies in the compilation pipeline to avoid unnecessary recompiling of assembly definition references if the public metadata for the assembly does not change when compiling scripts for the editor. For example, if you modify only private methods or fields, only the modified assembly will be recompiled. For instance, let's assume that we have 2 assemblies named A and B, where B has a reference to A. When changing the body of the method in A will be recompiled, but all the dependencies will not, as the public-facing part are unchanged. In this example, assembly B wouldn't be recompiled. This is especially useful to reduce iteration time when making changes to assemblies that have many direct and/or indirect references. In Unity 2020.2, we also now offer a deterministic compilation option when compiling C#. However, just remember that it doesn't support the use of assembly version with a wildcard, in which case an error message will be emitted with details about how to disable deterministic compilation. Root namespace is a new field in the assembly definition inspector that is used to automatically add a namespace when creating a new script in Unity and in Visual Studio and Rider. Don't forget to update the Visual Studio and Rider package to the latest version if you plan to use this functionality. Zero change rebuilds on IL to CPP platforms. If you make changes that don't involve code, for example, materials, shaders, or prefabs, IL to CPP conversion from .NET assemblies to C++ will be now skipped when building a player. This will improve artist workflows and speed up iterations. IL to CPP player build time improvement. The process of converting .NET assemblies into C++ files has historically been single-threaded. In 2020.2, the application that processes the conversion takes advantage of modern multi-core processors, dramatically decreasing the overall IL to CPP player build times. In the graph, you can see a comparison of serial and parallel IL to CPP conversion time on 2 projects. The red line is an internal demo, and the orange one is a project from an external studio. You can see how the line drops when the feature became available. You will be happy to hear that Unity 2020.2 now supports all the newest C#8 features and enhancements, with the exception of default interface methods. We recently refactored the Time Manager interface inside the engine. Frame time calculations are more stable now, providing much smoother object movement when the game is running at a stable frame rate. Unity 2020.2 already has time stability improvements on iOS, macOS, PS4, Switch, tvOS, UWP, Windows, and Xbox One. Improvements on Android, Windows Linux, on Vulkan, and XR will come later. You can see in this graph the consistency when using 2020.2. You can check out the blog post if you would like to know more about this feature. Unity Safe Mode is available in 2020.2. With it, we are improving how Unity behaves when opening a project which has script compilation errors. If there are compilation errors at editor startup, you will be prompt to enter Safe Mode, which is designed to provide the best environment for resolving them, so you can quickly return your project to a functional state, without waiting for unnecessary imports of your project's assets. This feature will simplify and speed up the process of upgrading a project to a new Unity version, and it will help teams working on large projects by reducing the number of cases in which the library folder contains incorrect import artifacts. We made render and memory profiler stats available in Player. As a reminder, stats workflow takes place in 3 steps. First, we generate stats data including user code. Then we obtain stats via Recorder API in Players. And last, we visualize stats in Profiler window via Module Editor. This allows you to read the values of performance statistics for the existing profiler areas, such as memory, rendering, and others, directly within the player. You can use that data to display performance heads-up displays on your project while running on the target device or to build other performance tooling for your own needs. We also added a number of visualization improvements. The ability to add charts in the profiler window gives you more performance context for either existing or user-generated profiler statistics. In this screenshot, we can see the module editor where users build their module. Then this screenshot shows the user's module being displayed in the profiler. In this example, it's the called count of bullets tanks. Flow events can now display serial task dependencies in the profiler timeline and help you identify which task is in a sequence of operations your application is spending time on. Bring in more core performance improvements. Camera main used to be a performance costly function to call. With this optimization, a dedicated list of objects with the main camera tag is maintained, and searching the list is almost instantaneous. More core performance improvement, including UV unwrapping on model import, has been a time-consuming operation, as the unwrapping happens in a separate process. This process is now being kept alive, making this operation up to 50 times faster. Gizmo rendering is now considerably faster for both general gizmos and light probes gizmos. Nested prefab loading in the editor has been optimized and sped up by up to 20 times. No longer an experimental feature, configurable enter play mode enables you to disable either or both of the domain reload and scene reload actions to speed up entering play mode. With editor coroutines now out of preview, you can start the execution of iterative methods within the editor, similar to how coroutines inside monobehavior scripts are handled during runtime. Unity Linker performs static analysis to strip managed code. It also recognizes a number of attributes and allows you to annotate dependencies where it is enabled to identify them. In Unity 2020.2, the tool received API updates to match Mono IL Linker. Starting with Unity 2020.1, Unity Linker can detect some simple reflection patterns, lessening the need to use link.xml files. These are the major updates for programmer tools and performance. You can check the release notes for the full list of updates and fixes in 2020.2. Now moving to the editor and team workflows. Physics articulation body component improvements. You can now link rigid body hierarchies to articulation body hierarchies with regular joints. The forces and torques produced by that linkage are propagated in both hierarchies automatically. This is particularly helpful if you work in robotics or physics-based games. Additionally, new APIs are exposed that include support for physically based inverse kinematics. Prefab support for asset post-processor is now available. If on-post-processor prefab is implemented, post-processors will be able to modify the prefab. All added objects will get the Don't Save in Editor flag to avoid changes being applied to the source prefab. For instance, in this example, we are adding a mesh collider to the game object that contains collider in its name. In the new Unity Hub version, we deliver several improvements to the UX, such as clearer messaging and workflows for managing projects, downloads, Unity editors, and modules. We also bring a new dynamic, downloadable templates to make learning game development more fun. We also bring UX and management improvements in the Package Manager scoped registries. A new dialog informs users when a new scoped registry is added to the project. You can manage all scoped registries in the project, like adding or removing registry and scope from project settings. You can also filter Unity registry and My Registry package by author to more easily browse or search packages from their source registry. The Quick Search 2.0 version comes with more search tokens and provides contextual completion to assist when typing queries. Scene searching is no longer limited to the open scene. It's now possible to search through all the scenes and prefabs of your project at once. For instance, here we are in the Win scene, searching for a prefab that exists in the main scene. This is achieved by indexing their content, which happens in the background and can be configured using the Index Manager. With 2020.2, we also bring to you a lot of quality of life improvements across the editor, starting with the ability to reorder arrays and lists in the inspector, and you can use the attribute non-reordable if you'd like to disable this function. We also made scene move, rotate, scale, handle lines thicker and configurable. For texture import pipeline for 2D array and 3D texture, you can import your flipbook array 3D texture to preview directly without having to write custom C# code. Also now, you can visualize blend shapes in the mesh inspector when they are present. You can also pan, zoom into the viewed mesh. More improvements on the hierarchy. You now have the new option to create empty parent item. Now when you create a new object, it has the rename mode by default. When using version control, you can see version statues or prefabs displayed in the hierarchy. It's also now possible to mark an object as default parent in hierarchy view, so when you drag new assets into the scene, they get parented to that object. Other quality of life highlights, you can drag multiple prefabs into the scene simultaneously. And now the inspector properties copy-paste supports user-defined C# types. Scripting-defined directives in the project settings are now shown as an array. Frame selected on an already selected object zooms into its pivot point. Going to the project window, asset renames and moves are undoable. Now you can see in the Game Object Inspector the selected object count next to the name field. We also have other additions. For instance, now you can view recently opened scenes. They are now included under File Open Recent menu. We brought a series of prefab import improvements to increase the correctness, performance, scalability, cacheability, and more. Script dependencies, prefabs that contain mono behaviors, will now be in sync with the script and won't lose references in the case of compile errors. We also made assets pipeline more robust, with the important and determinism check. Asset Database Consistency Check in 2020.2 provides a feature that checks whether the assets produced by importers remain consistent with the original asset and its dependencies. It can be enabled by manual reimport or by command line. These are the major updates for editor and team workflows. Again, you can check the beta release notes for the full list of updates and fixes in 2020.2. Time to jump into artist tools and graphics new features. And we are starting with ShaderGraph. ShaderGraph 10.0 brings several new features that improve the workflow for technical artists. We have now replaced the master node with a more flexible master stack solution for graph output definition. The master stack is a modular collection of feature blocks allowing a single graph to be easily switched between shader models such as lead or hair. All graphs made with previous ShaderGraph versions can be opened and upgraded automatically in 10.0. The ability to view generated shader has been moved to the Unity Inspector. The option appears when you select the ShaderGraph asset. To improve the accessibility of settings in complex graphs, a contextual graph inspector panel is added within the ShaderGraph window. This streamlines access to node settings, graph settings, and graph targets in a single window for smoother navigation. The graph now visually indicates which features and nodes are compatible with the current setting selections. For instance, lit or hair, as well as supporting multiple render pipelines with a single graph. UI improvements in nodes will add better clarity around what features are compatible with each pipeline and target. This will make it easy to create graphs that work in both URP and HGRP. Here is a recap of the shader graph updates. In 2020.2, we also bring VFX graph updates, including a number of features and improvements. The addition of output events allows users to synchronize lights, sound, physical reactions, or gameplay based on spawn events via a delegate interface in C#. With per-particle mesh LOD, you will be able to optimize your effects by setting LOD meshes based on the screen size in the mesh output. The multi-mesh feature allows for up to 4 meshes to be used by the same mesh output, making it easier to add per-particle variety to your effects. Among the experimental features, static mesh sampling enables the spawning of particles directly from meshes. We also added frustum culling as an optimization to discard the rendering of off-screen particles. Another VFX culling optimization is compute. Moving to lighting updates. For global illumination, we increased the bounce limit for both GPU and CPU light mappers. Here we can see the result with 1 indirect bounce, 5 indirect bounces, and 50 indirect bounces. In addition, blue noise sampling is now used to improve the quality of light maps. We have also reduced memory usage in the GPU light mapper when baking large light maps by disabling progressive updates when memory runs low, and added the ability for the light mapper to automatically throttle memory usage internally. This means that larger projects can be baked with the GPU light mapper. In 2020.2, we also bring a series of improvements for cinematic, media and entertainment industry. Recording API is now available in preview, enabling the automation of video recording in the editor in a continuous integration system. This is useful when a team member updates an asset to automatically generate a new video version. Apple ProRes encoding is now available in the Unity Recorder for native high-quality output that's optimized for video editing on Mac and Windows computers. More passes available, like motion vectors and more lighting passes. Compressed EXR and HDR output for the AOV recorder is now supported in HDRP. As a reminder, AOV recorder allows you to export render passes for external compositing in software like Nuke or DaVinci Resolve. These are the major media and entertainment updates. The animation rigging package is now verified. Animation rigging enables procedural control of animated skeletons at runtime as well as authoring of new animation clips in the Unity editor. Create and organize sets of constraints to address your rigging needs. For example, you can create deform rigs with procedural secondary animation to control character armor, props, and accessories. You can create word interaction rigs for interactive adjustments, targeting, and animation pose correction. The verified version includes all the features released to date, including bidirectional motion transfer. Here is a recap of the animation rigging updates. As for the UI Builder is available as a preview package. We've added several usability improvements, such as multi-selection support and in-place text editing directly in the canvas. We are also improving working with multiple UI documents by authoring subdocuments in context or in isolation. Furthermore, you can enable editor extension authoring to see controls meant for use within the editor. We also bring improvements in URP. With screen space ambient occlusion, you can improve the visual quality of ambient lighting in your scene. SSAO approximates shadowing of surfaces based on its surrounding environment and how exposed it is to ambient lighting. Another addition is the shadow mask and distanced shadow mask lighting mode support. Shadow mask lighting mode allows Unity to combine baked and real-time shadows at runtime and to render shadows in the far distance. Distanced shadow mask lighting mode can provide the highest fidelity shadows among all the lighting modes. With real-time shadows in the foreground, blending to baked shadows in the distance, making it suitable for rendering large realistic scenes where distant game objects are visible, such as open worlds on high-end or mid-range hardware. With URP Elite Shader, you now have additional surface inputs such as detail, detail normal, height, and parallax maps. URP now supports clear coat maps through the new complex Lit Shader. Clear coat maps can be used to simulate a clear coat effect to mimic materials such as car paint. The improvements will give you a better and more flexible control over shadow settings in URP. These improvements will also address fragmentation of shadow configuration between URP and HDRP. We are improving the settings for shadow cascade count, control by distance, shadow distance fade. Now you can also lower your build data size and improve loading times by stripping out certain shaders that aren't in use. Time for the HDRP updates. First, let's have a look at the new HDRP template. New additions including better tools to help you debug lighting. We included various lighting debug view modes that allow you to separate, visualize, and debug the different components of lighting in your scene. The light component now includes a visualization to help you set the intensity of your lights using physical light units. We also bring a new decal layers feature, allowing you to specify which decals affect which materials on a layer-by-layer basis. HDRP's exposure implementation can now compute a histogram of the image, which allows you to select high and low percentile value to discard. Discarding outlying values in the shadows or highlights helps to calculate a more stable exposure. Planar reflection probe filtering is a process that combines the result of planar reflection and surface smoothness. Up until this version, the implementation for planar reflection probe filtering did not always produce results of fantastic quality. This version of HDRP includes a new implementation that is closer to being physically based and improves on the image quality significantly. HDRP also introduced screen space global illumination. It's an algorithm that accesses and direct diffuse lighting the environment generates. It works in the same way as the screen space reflection in that it uses ray marching to calculate the result. HDRP now supports the Illuminating Engineering Society (IES) file format for describing the distribution of light from a light source. HDRP supports the IES profile for point, spot for the three shapes, cone, pyramid, and box, and rectangle area lights. You can also mix the IES profile with cookies and even use the profile and cookie mix for light map baking. HDRP's screen space reflection solution now supports transparent materials. This is useful for transparent surfaces such as windows or water. We also provide an eye shader graph, which you can use to create a realistic eye material. There are also new HDRP-specific shader graph nodes, which allow you to easier customize this eye shader graph. As for path tracing, it now supports fog absorption. You can use this feature by enabling path tracing and setting up fog in the same way as you would for standard fog in HDRP. Path tracing now supports subsurface scattering as well, which handles light that penetrates and moves within the area under a surface. You can use it to make organic materials like skin look smooth and natural rather than rough and plastic-like. HDRP also includes a new depth of field mode for producing path-traced images with high-quality defox, blur, and much more. HDRP ray tracing features available now in preview. HDRP ray tracing now has a set of fallback for transparency, so the visuals of transparent game objects are coherent both with and without recursive rendering and refraction. With this release, HDRP supports colored ray traced shadows for transparent and transmissive game objects. Additionally, the denoiser for ray traced shadows now produces higher quality results. HDRP ray traced refraction solution now supports transparent materials useful for transparent surfaces such as windows or water. And the quality and performance of ray traced global illumination have been improved. These are the major HDRP updates. We also bring new updates on 2D tools, and let's get started with the streamlined 2D menus. 2D menu items are now displayed in dedicated top-level menus for object and asset creation. We've also added menus for some of the newer features. This improved user experience should be more intuitive for new users and faster for those working on 2D projects. We also improved 2D default assets. Previously, new 2D game objects were represented by a small pixel sprite that users had to change to make the game object usable. Now you can pick from among a variety of 2D game objects with primitive shapes that will also match their Collider 2D shape, several predefined 2D physics, tile maps, and sprite shape options, all of which improves gameplay prototyping and general usability. As for animation, in the new 2D animation package version, 2D IK is no longer a standalone package. Improvements include hideable gizmos and better visualization of IK handles. 2D IK allows animators using 2D skeletal animation to save time by automatically calculating the position and rotation of a chain of bones realistically following the parent bone. And here is a recap of the 2D updates. Time to cover updates on platforms and services. Now let's get started with important features on platforms in 2020.2. In 2020.2, IR Foundation, our purpose-built framework that enables you to build your application across multiple handheld and wearable AR devices, now includes meshing support. Developers building for the latest iOS devices with the LiDAR sensor can now generate a runtime mesh that can be used for collision, occlusion, and more. With native Apple Silicon support, you can target the next evolution of Mac hardware with native support for Apple Silicon for the standalone player. Another major addition with the Adaptive Performance 2.0, building on previous releases with new samples to show off different new features. As you can see, you can access all these samples from the package manager. New features including adaptive scalars. Use the indexer system to receive quantified system information about the thermo and performance state of the device. Make sure the indexer is enabled to be able to use them. Each scalar can be controlled independently and can be extended by custom scalars very easily. Another new feature is the variable refresh rate support. It can be used on certain Samsung Galaxy devices to change the refresh rate. Each of these features is also supported by the Adaptive Performance Device Simulator. Here we can see examples of the Adaptive Performance Simulator extension with the device simulator to emulate adaptive performance on any device. We also bring series of fixes and improvements to the input system. 1.1 is available in preview. Now it's possible to save and load rewinds as JSON. Additionally, from now, device layouts can be precompiled, which reduces greatly the instantiation time and garbage collection heap cost for these devices. These are the major platforms updates. Let's move to services. With Unity Distribution Portal, UDP, you can distribute your game to multiple app stores through a single hub. In Unity 2020.2, the UDP package works independently from Unity IIP. This means that you can add the UDP package to your project whether or not Unity IIP is implemented on it, and if it is, you can do so without risking conflicts. Now it's also possible to simply enable UDP by going to the Services window. Also, the changes on the UDP console to enable project-level permissions require the UDP package to handle the new permission system. We also have updates on the UDP console side. We have added information and new tutorials to help you get started with UDP. In the Game section, you now have the ability to import in-app purchases catalog in bulk using CSV file. You can also use a template that UDP provides, or in Google Play format. We also added sandbox testing section to let users know when their build is ready for release. We have changes on the app signature. We now allow developers to sign repack builds with their own private key. Finally, we improved the publishing flow by letting developers see what are the errors that their builds are facing before they can submit. Here's a recap of the services updates. These are the major updates on 2020.2. Thank you for watching. You can find the full list of updates and fixes in the release notes. If you have any questions, please feel free to ask them on the 2020.2 Unite Now thread on the Unity forum, and we will be happy to answer. While Unity 2020.2 is our newest release, Unity 2019 LTS is still our recommended version for the majority of use cases. You can find more information about tech and LTS releases in our Unity platform page. Thank you all for watching again. We hope you enjoy using these new updates. Goodbye for now, stay safe, and have fun.